more retirees considering to work as high inflation squeezes. A Motley Fool survey shows 44% of retired Americans are considering returning to work due to chronic inflation and inadequate Social Security benefits, which despite a 3.2% cost of living adjustment in 2024, have not kept pace with rising costs. The average monthly Social Security payment of $19.07 in 2024 is significantly less than the $48.18 monthly expense reported by Americans ages 65 and older. Let me say this one more time. The average monthly Social Security payment in 2024 is $19.07. And that is a fraction of what the average American age 65 and older reported spending in 2022, which is $4,008.18. Okay. So with 27% relying on their sole income, inflation and high interest rates have drastically increased costs for necessities, causing severe financial pressure. Financial struggle has led 61% of respondents to report daily hardships, and many are considering retirement plans. About 25% of non-retired investors expect to return to work due to insufficient savings, while 19% doubt they will ever save enough to retire, with another 19% planning to retire later than expected due to inflation. Tom.
Words talk, numbers scream. We got a bunch of numbers here. It was very interesting. Side by side with this, Harris had a poll, and the Harris poll has been tracking. And boy, it's so surprising that mainstream media doesn't ever talk about this particular Harris tracking poll. In Q4, 79% of people said the number one issue, economic issue for them, was inflation. After saying 60% of them saying that economy was number one. Mm-hmm. And they said, what issue in the economy? 79% said inflation. In Q1, that was Q4 of last year, Q1, 82% it's inflation. In middle of Q2, May 10th, just passed by, 84% said it was inflation. And by the way, 75% of the people over 50 in a Harris poll said inflation is continuing to increase. Meanwhile, the federal government is saying inflation's under control. No, when people are saying inflation, it's affordability. And what's happening is these poor retirees, and the numbers we just saw, are saying, I can't do it. I got to go back. I want to be a Walmart greeter, or I got to do something because I've got a gap, and it's the affordability crisis. And I previously mentioned TransUnion's food inflation survey done at the end of Q1 said it was a 30% cumulative increase since the end of Q4 2020. There you have it. There's the numbers. The affordability crisis in America is worse than ever. And now the people who can least afford it are thinking about, man, I got to go back to work. I got to get a side hustle. Grandma has to get a side hustle. Where are we?
I love Tom's commentary here. I'll flip it. Tom always says the following, there's the upstream problems and the downstream problems, right? This is where probably the upstream problem is a 70-year-old who has to go back to work. Sucks. Nobody wants to do that. But the reason that they're doing that is the downstream problem is they just never paid attention to saving enough money and investing. And that's the biggest problem. So what's the message that you guys can take if you're 30, 40 years old, whatever? It's nobody cares about your problems 30 years from now. When it's time for you to retire, 30 years from now when you go to retire and you're like, well, inflation in 2024, no one's going to care in 2054. They're going to say, what did you do over the last 40, 50 years of your life to get out of debt, stop being paycheck to paycheck, start saving and investing? Because I know one thing for sure, you cannot save your way to becoming a millionaire. You have to figure out a way to become an investor. And you're going to need $1 million, $2 million when you retire at 70 years old, whatever it is, so you don't end up on the government plan. So you guys at home right now, flip a coin, heads and tails. Heads, you're going to have money in retirement. Tails, you're not going to have money in retirement, because the reality is this, 50% of you are straight up going to be on the government plan. And the other 50% are like, oh shit, I don't want to have to rely on Social Security, and I don't have a pension, and I haven't saved enough money. I should probably start that 401k thing that they talk about, that Roth IRA thing. I should probably stop living for today and plan for tomorrow, because if you're 30, you're going to be 40. If you're 40, you're going to be 60. And the reality is, if you don't save that money, you're going to end up one of these old people that in 30 years has to go work.
So a couple things. We can talk what you should have done, which we have to do that because we have to learn from our parents' mistakes and what they did right, what they didn't do right. This is what happens when you don't pay attention to money, period. You're going to go through this.